Hello, this is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and today we're going to talk about the kettle. Now, this is another day that Phil McConnell is in jail. Day 95, I believe. Phil and I seem to be a day off on our jail days. He says 95, I say 96. So we're going to go with 95, because that's what he said on his diatribe that I caught briefly today. Phil McConnell declared on a show yesterday that he was getting death threats from Broward County. And it was from someone that worked in the family court. Now, isn't that something? Death threats. Where have we heard death threats before? Oh, that's right. That's why Phil McConnell is sitting in jail. Because he's charged with making death threats. That's what the felony cyber stalking's all about. It's those death threats. And who did Phil McConnell make those death threats to? Allegedly. Oh, it was somebody that worked in the family court in where? Broward County. Now, isn't that something? It's also a lie, which is all that Phil McConnell is capable of doing. Phil McConnell, on recording after recording after recording after recording, on his field report, which everybody that works for Phil McConnell has gone through great lengths to get removed from the internet, and has gone around issuing copyright strikes in order to prevent this from getting out. But it's out. We all know about it. We've seen it. I personally witnessed it. I used to watch that nonsense. And I heard him make the threats. So Phil McConnell is only fooling himself. And maybe those supporters of his out there that are too stupid to realize it, or who don't care. We're here for one purpose, and one purpose only, and that is about the truth about who Timothy Charles Holmseth and Phil McConnell really are. And that is that they're both con artists. And they're also something else. They're scapegoats. They're convenient, disposable items. They're going to be cast off to the wolves when the time comes. And neither one of them realizes it. Phil McConnell should have realized it by now. And Timothy Charles Holmseth will never realize it. Because when the time comes for him to get cast off, in which some ways he already has been, he's not going to realize it. Now let's get back to the topic at hand, and that is Phil McConnell's extradition. Now, I published on Twitter after I checked the court record, and Phil McConnell is going to have an extradition hearing tomorrow at 3:15 p.m. in the afternoon. That's 2:15 p.m. Central Time. Local time for those of you in Minnesota and Wisconsin. And two things are going to happen. Actually three, but two. First thing that's going to happen is Phil McConnell's going to present his argument. Judge is going to look at it and said, well, take this up with the state of Florida. You're on your way to Florida. Case dismissed. Court dismissed. Case not dismissed. Court's dismissed. Or he'll get a little extension to argue his case. But he's going to be in jail. He's not going to go home. He's staying right where he's at. He can do his little daily talk show. do his little prayer meetings and say how this is all about Field McConnell and his conspiracy theory about 9/11 and some of the other gobbledygook he covers in his little broadcast. And the clock will keep on ticking. Or he's going to wind up coming to Florida next week. But we'll know that tomorrow. But Phil McConnell forgot to leave something out that he finally brought up. Yes, everybody's been saying that Phil McConnell has all these great lawyers that he's been consulting with in the Deep South. Turned out to be a big lie. There are no lawyers. It's more of these alternative people. It's people like David Straight and Hallett and a bunch of other morons that are not licensed to practice law in either Florida or Wisconsin. Guess who's been filing all of this paperwork and Phil McConnell claims is going to save his ass? Then his next door neighbor, the guy feeding his dogs. And the court won't accept the paperwork because the guy's not a lawyer. You know, like it or not, you cannot practice law on behalf of a client in any state in the United States, or territory for that matter, without being certified by the Bar Association. You got to be a licensed attorney. You got to pass a bar exam. You got to do all kinds of stuff. You just can't go out and say, okay, I'm going to be your lawyer, Field. What do you need filed? Not going to happen. Certainly can't sue his next door neighbor for being an ineffective counsel. Field is just screwing himself. And it's got to be because some idiot is giving him this advice. Probably David Straight or somebody like him. Maybe Kirk Pendergrass is giving him advice, or Mr. Hallett. Who knows? But they're giving him bad advice. They're giving him the wrong advice. And the Phil Tannic has struck that legal iceberg and is sinking. Yeah, I'm amazed at how stupid people are. How incredibly stupid people are. That they would even begin to believe this nonsense. But you look at the comment section on his YouTube channel, and these people are downright insane. Because they believe it. They think that Phil McConnell is the greatest thing since dirt. The problem, however, is that there are people's lives being destroyed because of the gullibility of people. And Cynthia Abzug is a perfect example. Because she has to face consequences of actions that she took based on the advice of others. Based on those who told her that because the system enveloping CPS is a rigged system, that there's no chance in hell she's ever going to see her children. So you have to snatch your children, come to the house of a stranger, get a diplomatic passport, and get the hell out of the United States. Go overseas to a strange land that you're not familiar with the culture, you're not familiar with the people, and most important, you're not familiar with their laws. And this is where the truth lies. That it is alleged, and it is becoming clear every day that that's what the allegation is, that the Children's Crusade is actually a front for human trafficking. It became more difficult to adopt American children if you're a resident of another country. We wanted to make sure that as many children as possible were adopted by American citizens. and that they stayed in the United States. And so, a measure was passed that required adoption agencies to do as much as possible to place adopted children with United States residents. And of course, we had a tight adoption market in the United States to where people from Russia and overseas were trying to get their children brought to the United States to get adopted here. They wanted a better life for their children, so they figured, well, they'll just let United States citizens adopt their children. So this created something of a buyer's market. Now, one would think, okay, so you've got wealthy parents here in the United States that have all this money, and they'll go out and they'll get involved in these fake adoption scams. And this was the theory behind Haley Cummings that Timothy Homseth came up with, where Haley Cummings was supposedly snatched in the middle of the night, and he blames his attorney from Florida who was involved in a fake adoption ring, and that the children were being sold domestically. Well, there's problems with that. First of all, you have this thing called DNA. And you have something called Ancestry.com and all kinds of different sites that have sprung up, where if Haley Cummings had been kidnapped and sold to somebody and something happened, like Haley Cummings come of age, trying to find out about her ancestry, and she had a DNA test run, and to find out she was a missing child from Palatka, Florida. Now, there's no statute of limitation on certain things, and there'd be an investigation to find out how the hell she wound up with a set of parents, and it would have been found out that she was the subject of an illegal adoption, and then all hell would have broken loose. And so the people involved in this aren't going to take that risk. So that's why Tim Homseth's theory fell apart. It's because of that. So now what? Well, what if this isn't what about an alternative here? And that alternative is not adoption. It's about commodities trading. Now, there could be adoption in here somewhere. It's a possibility. Because of this law that makes it difficult to adopt an American child if you're a resident of a foreign country. Now, it is being done, but it's more difficult. And it's primarily being done by mixed race couples. Most of the children being adopted overseas are black, African American. They're being adopted by mixed race couples. They're being adopted by gay couples, straight couples. Kind of an interesting thing. So there's that aspect. There's something even more sinister, and that is pornography and sex trafficking. Now, when it comes to child pornography, the United States is the strictest in the world. Other countries have laws about child pornography, but there's two problems. First of all, they're not as strict, and second of all, the laws aren't that well enforced. And a lot of these guys, they don't have the resources, number one. You know, people don't realize it, and if they would check, they would find that child pornography originates overseas, for the most part. You don't have victims of child pornography, for the large part, stemming in the United States. Yes, we do have victims over here. But it's not as prevalent because the laws are incredibly strict. You even possess child pornography, you're in serious trouble. If you're involved in child pornography, you're in even worse trouble. So it's a bad situation all around. The United States is real bad about enforcing this sort of thing. They're right there after you. Not so in Europe. Things are a lot different over there. Child trafficking is different. And it gets a little more complicated if the mother of the child involved in this stuff voluntarily comes to Europe. If the mother with the child or children voluntarily leave the United States and go to Europe. It creates a bit of a problem for the European countries and other countries in other continents overseas to enforce these laws, because we're dealing with Americans that voluntarily left their country. And it's their child. And if their child gets involved in this stuff, it creates that complication. Because these parents are still in the jurisdiction of the United States. These are U.S. citizens. And so all kinds of things develop. Diplomatic things, embassy things, all kinds of stuff. Look at Julian Assange. He was accused of being a pedophile by a foreign country. He's a foreign national. Wasn't a citizen of the country where this girl was allegedly victimized. He's in the United Kingdom. And so he holds up in an embassy, and the United States wants him for their own reasons. And everybody likes Julian Assange because of his political standing. And they don't give a crap about the fact that the guy is a pedophile. So we're getting back to this political thing again. But anyway. And then we got Epstein doing his thing. And these all tie together. Not necessarily Epstein, but there's a possibility because he'd be a customer of whoever it is in Europe that's coordinating all this stuff. Because this is what you do. You take a mother with a child who needs to get out of the United States. That the only solution to her problem is to get out of the United States. So along come these people with all this money, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I want to help them out of their little mess. So they give them a talking to, and they say the only solution you have right now to solve your problem is to get out of the United States, at least temporarily, and let us deal with the authorities back here. And then once we get everything cleared up, you can come back to the United States. This is the story they're told. They say it may take a year or two to get this solved. And rather than have you bouncing around from house to house in the next 2 or 3 years, we got a special villa, a castle or something. You know, they give them this big pitch that they got this place over in Europe, out in the English countryside or something. Big manor, an old castle belonging to a earl or some nonsense. We'll put you up in this fancy castle. You'll have money. You'll have communication. You can talk to your family back in the United States. But you'll have diplomatic immunity. So you won't be able to be extradited from the country you're in. All right, you'll be happy. Your children will be educated. We'll have schools. If you're of a certain religious belief, we'll have, counseling available. You'll have it made. Because with these evil lefties we got in power right now, you're not going to be able to get your children back. We have to let Trump do his thing first. Or whatever. propaganda they use. They come up with an enticement to get you out of the United States. That's the key. They have to get you out of the United States, and it has to be voluntary. Because you still have to go through TSA, you still have to go through a process. And if they get this done quick enough in the process, they can get you out of the United States before the authorities get the wind that you're trying to leave the country. Because by the time they find out, it's too late. You're already gone. And it's going to take a long time once you leave the country to get you back, if they can ever get you back at all. Because again, you've left voluntarily. You can go to an embassy. You can go to a country that doesn't have an extradition agreement with the United States and not come back. Criminals do it all the time. And so that's what happens. They want to get you out of the country. You know, it almost happened to Tim Holmset. They wanted Tim Holmset to go over to England and testify in this organization that Steele was in. You know, they were going to ship Tim Holmset over to Europe. Or so he thought. This is precisely what they're doing with these mothers, with these children. They're getting them the hell out of the United States. And then when they get to Europe, after they get settled and get comfortable and everything, then reality's going to set in. They're going to find that something is afoot here. And that while they're eating their caviar and ice cream and whatever kind of delicious food they stuff down their throats and keep them busy, their children are being groomed, are being prepared, out of sight from the parents. Maybe the teachers are teaching them things that you don't normally teach a kid in school. And the customers are being rounded up. The auction is going to start. The product is for sale. And people like Epstein are there to buy. Children aren't going to be eaten. Their blood's not going to be drank. Not going to be any satanic rituals. Because these products have to be available to be used over and over and over again for a long time, for years perhaps, for who knows how long. So they're not going to damage their investment, something they probably paid $20, $30, $40, $50, $100,000 for. So this might be what's going on here. This might be why they need the children along with the mother, because they have to have an anchor. They have to have something to allay the fear of the child while they're going through the process. So that by the time reality sets in for both the mother and the child, it'll be too late. Because then they can threaten the mother, they can do all kinds of things. They could even drug up the mother. You have to remember, they're after mothers with a certain history. Now, I don't know Abzug's history, other than she was accused of this Munchausen thing. See, they can use that against Abzug. You know, they can start saying, look, you try something funny, like trying to go back to the United States, or complaining to your authorities or to the embassies and everything else. Remember, you came over here voluntarily. You didn't get kidnapped. You signed a piece of paper saying that you understand that we're helping you leave the United States. You know, somebody probably knows enough about the law that they know how to get around certain things to get the mother in a position to where she realizes that even though she's screwed up, she's stuck. She can't get out. Or they're going to get a mother who's abused drugs. Maybe she got hooked on heroin, she's in rehab, but she slipped up, so CPS came in. And now Children's Crusade swoops in and said, okay, we'll help you out. And she gets overseas, and all of a sudden they either covertly slip the drug into her, or they get her hooked. Maybe have a few of these lavish parties, and all of a sudden the drugs show up. Get her hooked. And now that she's hooked, she's got to have a supply. She's got to have her drugs. And at some point, she dies of an overdose. Problem solved. Get the child hooked. All these lavish parties these buyers have, children are going to get hooked on drugs. So that's the process here, folks. That's what's probably going on. You know, either Epstein or somebody like him is involved with this Children's Crusade, allegedly, on this conspiracy theory, since we seem to be so good with these conspiracy theories. Just think about it logically. You spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to get a mother and a child out of the United States. Why all this money? Unless there is a secondary motive here. And what better motive? Because it's next to impossible, legally, to adopt a United States citizen if you're a resident of a foreign country. Illegally, it's possible. But it may not necessarily be about adoption at all. Maybe just one part of it. People like white American girls, especially Americans that travel overseas for this kind of thing. Especially if white American girls have been trained to do what it is these people want. Now, there's probably European girls that fill the orders, but there's not enough of them. And plus, if you're in a European country and you mess around with a citizen of that European country, they're going to come after you harder than if you're messing around with a citizen of the United States in that country. If that citizen of that United States is there because their parent or guardian voluntarily brought them there. Totally different. There's cultural considerations, all kinds of stuff. And if there's that many wealthy people in the world that are after white American girls, then there's an incentive there. There's a monetary incentive there. Because, there are some very, 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 very wealthy people in the world. Billionaires, multimillionaires. Money is no object to these people. Spending $100,000 on a American child is nothing to them. That's 20% of the cost of a Rolls Royce. That's 10% the cost of a Maserati. That's 5% the cost of a jet or a yacht. So it's fairly cheap to spend $100,000 on a sex slave. Maintenance is practically nothing, $10 a day for food. Throw them in a spare room in a 50-room mansion. Put them on a private island somewhere. So, it's something to think about because it makes sense. It's what's being investigated. That it's more likely, in a distinct possibility, that the Children's Crusade is nothing more than a front for sex trafficking, for human trafficking. That the Children's Crusade is going around the country indoctrinating mothers of children caught up in the CPS system, caught up in these disputes for one reason or another, in an overloaded system that gets set up. Phone calls are made because they're sitting in a parking lot texting with 5 children in the car, and someone has found out that they have a history with CPS. They get framed, and they get told that the only way they're going to get out of their situation is they have to leave the United States. They have to get in their car, go over to this state as far away from their home base as they can get, and get roped into a desperate situation. It's easy enough to do, because a lot of times these women never even finished high school. They come from poor backgrounds, single marriage. The father probably got them pregnant, left them, not paying child support, any number of reasons. Somehow they got messed up with their lives and got involved with CPS. They keep breaking the rules. CPS will say, all right, we're going to take your kid. They don't want their kid taken. They love their kid. They want to keep their kid. They don't have the resources to defend themselves. And next thing you know, they're on the internet listening to these right-wing talk shows talking about how evil CPS is. And in the background is the Children's Crusade just waiting for that moment to put the hook in the water, bait the fish. Go to the GoFundMe account, send them a couple $100. Say, hey, we got some way to help. Here's a couple $100 to help you out in your GoFund. And if you're interested, contact us. We'll help you out. We're a group that dedicated to helping mothers stay with their children to fight the evils of the CPS, DCF. And sure enough, next thing you know, woman's got a guy sitting on her couch as a bodyguard because someone tried to break in her house. Woman in the van is on her way to Walmart, but she forgot her kids. Another woman is out there driving across country with her son on her way to that big white mansion on the hill. Another victim in the international shopping spree that's going on. And all we're worried about right now is some old fart sitting in a county jail waiting for extradition. The diversion to keep our attention over here and not over there. Because that's Phil McConnell's purpose. Phil McConnell probably not even aware all this is going on. Oh, he probably knows about Abzug because he was told about her. You know, because the people running the Children's Crusade said this is what we're doing. We're helping mothers that are having problems with CPS. We're helping them keep their children. We're offering them safe harbor and safe houses. Kind of an interesting term that gets bandied around. Because this got mentioned by both of these women. It said they're going to safe houses. Kind of like a underground railroad type thing. Or, of course, mafiosos use it. It's a term that's used for government witnesses that are in the witness protection program. We're going to send you to a safe house. Going to have guards to keep you from getting arrested or having bad things happen to you. You know, all this cloak and dagger stuff. See, this is what that one talk show host missed on his show. All these weird terms, safe houses, and so on and so forth. You know, former CIA agents, people with the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, personal friend of the President of the United States, all this stuff. These are unsophisticated women. They know next to nothing about the internet. They may know how to use an app, because apps are made so easy. You see 2, 3, 4-year-old children using these apps. So there's no sophisticated knowledge needed. There's no college education needed to understand the ways of the world. They see things every day on TV about all this fantastic stuff, and they believe it. They say, well, somebody says that they're with the Pentagon, or they're with the government, or they're with this or that. It's got to be believable. So some guy shows up and he's a sniper from the military. I remember that movie about the sniper they made, about the guy that was a hero. There was a movie called The Sniper. Yeah, this guy must be real. So they believe this stuff. It's the same with QAnon. This woman probably had no idea what QAnon was before she met this med student. But all of a sudden they find themselves going to this little meeting of QAnons. You know, and this guy from Northwest Liberty News never bothered to ask this woman. She said, what's the reason for going to this QAnon meeting? What does this have to do with your child, your children? Did you suddenly just get interested in QAnon? You wanted to find out what it was all about? And you thought, oh, it's a bunch of old farts sitting around talking politics. Talk about crunching numbers and stuff. Instead of getting to what might be the truth here, this guy is supposed to be about child trafficking, preventing abuses. The only thing he's interested in is a political agenda, and that blinds him to the truth. That, yeah, there's child trafficking going on, but that's by those evil Democrats. And maybe he gets awoken up to the fact that there's people like Phil McConnell that are up to no good. That until Cynthia Abzug came forward with her little story, that he thought that Phil McConnell was a hero. But Phil McConnell's not a hero anymore, not to Jim. So, at least he had the sense to realize that there's something wrong with the Children's Crusade. But he didn't dig deep enough. Because I don't think he's going to like what he finds if he gets down deep and starts doing some research and see just exactly what's going on with these children. And that political beliefs and desperate situations are being exploited in order to get a marketable commodity overseas, to export our resources, which is our next generation of children. So, until people start digging into this, people with the resources start digging into this, more mothers are going to get victimized, and they're going to get victimized every day. And we're going to start reading about mothers and children disappearing without a trace, and then suddenly popping up in Europe. Because there is an uprising, and there is some strange things going on involving mothers and children. And it's about time that people take their political binders off and start exploring the truth and finding out the who, what, when, where, and why of organizations like the Children's Crusade. Because now that the Children's Crusade has been exposed and that they're under investigation, it is likely that those at the very top of this international operation are making plans to start another one of these things. With an entirely different group of people, they're going to change the way they do things, they're going to modify things. But the base format's going to be the same. They're going to find a way to get mothers of children who are involved with disputes with CPS to take their kids and run and meet them at a safe house. And they're going to get them out of the country voluntarily so that they can take control over their lives. So that's what's coming. This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1. Have a good one.